innings. Unfortunately, Will Vest couldn't keep a couple runs off the board. I believe he gave up 2 earned runs, technically. A great double play turned by the Tigers was able to save a run, or 2, honestly, because that looked like it was going to be a base hit. And yeah, for Sawyer Gibson-Long, he had a 5.45 ERA in Toledo, 25 years old, acquired in the Michael Fulmer trade. Is a guy that can control the strike zone, doesn't walk a lot of batters. Velocity isn't really up there. And I posted a tweet, and maybe it's a little premature. It probably is with, we're all overreacting to how good of a start he had, but kind of reminds me of Doug Fister a little bit, kind of a tall, lengthy guy. Here in the interview with, I think it was Natalie Kerwin and his mom, Sawyer Gibson-Long's mom, that was really interesting. His mom was really hyping him up. I believe she said that Scott Harris and AJ Hinch are going to lead the Detroit Tigers to a World Series. That was something. I think he checks all the boxes intangible. Why he's a guy that's really easy to root for, and it just goes to add to the Detroit Tigers' depth of all these young pitchers that they have. Obviously, with Casey Mize coming back, you have Tarek Skubal, Matt Manning, Joey Wentz, who struggled a bit. You have Alex Faedo, Reese Olson. Now you add Sawyer Gibson-Long to that. Gives the Detroit Tigers a lot of depth as they try to flesh out this rotation for next year.
You know how intense his mom is, by the way? His mom said something to the Tiger Minor League Report like, hey, how come my son's not, ranked on your top 25 list? Something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. But she was a big fan of the Tiger Minor League Report and putting her, every time we put a clip out there, she was all over it. She shared it quickly, and the fact even talking to him, he's just a low key guy, and he worked his ass off. And look, admittedly, when he came over last year, there wasn't a lot of fanfare because he came over in the Michael Fulmer deal. And so when you look at his numbers on paper, and he really just in terms of when we had him on, and Tyler mentioned this too. He talked about his swimming days and how much that helped him. And you don't see that very often in baseball because usually now everybody kind of specializes pretty quickly. And so you look at his build. I mean, he is a built dude. He is, but he always got this long mullet thing going. And it's always looked like it's wet. He looks like kind of a rock star to me. Like he's always but he goes out there and he's a competitor. Like he is a leader in the clubhouse. I've heard nothing but good things about him down in Erie. And we were talking with him. By the way, if you have not checked out the interview, it's on Tiger Minor Report on our interview series. The one thing that he learned a cutter in 3 days. I mean, he's the ultimate example of the organization came up to him. Gabe Rivas, the Tigers pitching instructor, said, hey, we're going to teach your cutters. Like, all right, cool. And he was just so laid back about it. Unlike somebody who missed a start in Toledo over this weekend, who may not see in the Tigers uniform again.
Well,
rhymes with Mernbull. So, yeah. Oh, by the way, Tyler mentions too, he plays piano, which I did not know that, which actually adds to the mystique a little bit of this Sawyer Gibson-Long. It was also funny too because he was wearing number 66, and that was just kind of rather. He was hellish on White Sox pictures. That was bad. That was a bad joke. But yeah,
so he's like a keyboardist for 38 Special or something.
Hold on, yeah, that's a good one. Or what about the Georgia Satellites?
Sure, I like it.
John has no idea what we're talking about.
No,
not a clue.
Yeah, two bands they were a lot longer. They're out there a lot longer than people gave them credit for whatever reason.
Oh, 38 Special had a solid career. Very underrated. Absolutely.
Georgia Satellites really had that one hit, though, right? Really, the keep your hands to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, that one. Oh, my God.
I'll tell you what. I thought, as someone who's not a pitching coach and not a scout, and sometimes I think it's overused by fans that, there was such great movement, because you're watching on TV and how much can you really see?
Right.
But I thought watching those 5+ innings, you really could see some special movement on some of the pitches he was throwing. I mean, he had White Sox batters not just swinging and missing. He had people missing by what looked to be, 8, 10, 12 inches. I mean, they were waving at the pitches. So you have to take a lot of that, with a grain of salt. I mean, it is the White Sox. They're not very good. Also, it's the first time they've seen this guy, and he only had to get through the order, about 2.5 times. So it was a good glimpse of what he has. It kind of gave me some confidence in that strikeout number that he had at Toledo, because his ERA was elevated, but that could just be a couple of bad outings. But he had something like 51 strikeouts in 35 innings or something really nice like that.
Yeah. His strikeout, his K per 9 jumped from 8.25 to around just over 10.
Yeah, and you could see why. I mean, the movement was there, the deception. He's a big, tall guy, so I'm sure he's kind of has a little bit of Matt Manning to him where he gets that extension. I want to see more. I mean, obviously, the pessimist in me says, well, Alfredo Figaro had a great start once too, and where he's selling cars somewhere now. So,
that's a throwback there. Nice.
Yeah,
nice. That was a really good throwback.
So, but I think he's more talented than Alfredo Figaro. But it's definitely, I hope he gets, 4 or 5 more starts here down the stretch. I'd be fine with, I don't know if there's 5 left, but if he could get 3, 4 starts, I'd certainly watch him with great interest.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Raj. So he had a 5.45 ERA down in the minors, but he did strike out 50 batters in 34 and 2/3 innings pitched, only walked 14 hitters as well. Gave up 8 home runs. So where was the ERA? Obviously, it's a bit on the higher side. So why do you think that was in AAA?
Well, I look at it this way. It's not the ERA that matters here. And here's why. Because look at Reese Olson. Reese Olson had an ERA over 9 when he got called up. It's about the movement and how the organization looks at him. Because Scott Harris is going to go, hey, how does he really look? Because this is why you don't look at box scores, Jay Markle. You don't do that. You don't look at box scores. You don't look at those things and scout the box score. You don't do that. And this might sound like I'm being a gatekeeper or being a snob about it, but that's why you really have to watch baseball and pay attention to these aspects, because when you look at the fact that his K per 9 was a career high, it opens eyes, because all he had last year was a fastball, a slider, and a power sinker. Then he brought back his change, and that 4-seamer now becomes, he can use it on the top of the zone, and with a cutter, he can get left-handers out. And so the way in Deadly Ninja Beast said it, wiffle ball stuff, it was to the point, like, I'm with you. Usually I try to keep things in perspective, but again, even take away the fact we just talked to him. Look at this. This is what I'm talking about right here. Yeah. I mean, listen to this. Whoop! What do you do? Wait, it's like, it's not exaggerating. Look at that. It's insane. Like, he was able to, like, against Tim Anderson, and Tim Anderson is an aggressive hitter, but Tim Anderson also is a good hitter.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, to me, what is a good sign about that. And so to answer your question, John, that's why you have to, like, if it's a guy like, for example, if a player A, okay, I'll give you an example. Player A has an ERA of 0.7 or 7.55, he has 80 strikeouts in 135 innings pitched. Pitcher B, same ERA, but has 112 strikeouts in 85 innings pitched. Who's going to get the call up? Obviously, the guy that can get strikeouts, because if he could get strikeouts with his fastball, because he's setting up everything else, that's what you got to do. And so Reese Olson's fastball started to play up better up here because he was throwing his secondaries better. So I think that before in the past, if you looked at it, like, if the Tigers didn't move like this, I go, but I in this case, in the last couple of weeks, last couple of months too, even Brandon White's numbers too weren't exactly, they were okay, but he was starting to get beat up a little bit towards the last part of Toledo. Doesn't matter. He was getting guys out. He was able to get Miguel Diaz, another one. Miguel Diaz is a prime example of this. How many times did I watch Miguel Diaz blow a game in Toledo this year?
Yeah.
And he's a completely different pitcher. It's like they suddenly were just like tweak, and then what are you gonna do?
So then, what should Tigers fans' expectations be for Sawyer Gibson-Long? Should we expect him to stick in the rotation as a back end starter? Or I kind of always viewed him. This is a very surface level, just kind of a depth starter. I never really expected him to stick in the Detroit Tigers rotation long term. Can he actually do that as a back end starter, maybe a middle rotation starter?
I think right now, I think it's really a case of one of the things he has to do is go longer and deeper in games. That was something he was trying to do over the last few months between Erie and Toledo. So I think he could be a back end starter. Also, a guy, I think he has 4 or 5 pitches mix. I think that makes him more of a starter than a bullpen because everybody, look at Alex Faedo's going to the bullpen, but I think Faedo makes a lot of sense because I think he's become, I don't know about you, Uper, but I think he becomes more of a 2-pitch pitcher to me at least.
And I think that would be, instead of throwing your worst pitch 20% of the time, get rid of that and just go with your 2 best and try to get through a lineup once. And I think he could excel at that, to be honest.
Yeah.